Hello, everyone. My name is Katrina Davis Kendrick. My mission is to inspire authentic collegiality and to promote well-being, share the gifts of creativity, and cultivate empathetic, engaged leadership in the workplace. I am very, very, very honored to be speaking with you at the 2021 ACRL conference as an invited presenter today. And I'm going to be talking with you about what I'm doing at my institution, where we know that the library is the heart of the university, right? That's where my library is, that little place that popped up. It's not on the center of the campus, but I perceive it as the center of our organization. Today, I'll be talking with you about my idea of welcome and how I use that idea and philosophy to create an open vision for the 21st century library and archive. So I'm going to start with a little overview about what's going on in higher education right now. And I perceive this as these are opportunities. A lot of folks might perceive these as challenges. I think this is a great opportunity for us. So we know that we are going to experience soon the reduced pool of traditional students. And the data say that this reduced pool we'll see that reduction in about 2 years, 2024, 2025. But that just means for us, in my mind, that we have expanded demographics to attract and that student recruitment goals are moving targets. But Ithaca S&R mentioned in a report that we have had traditional students, the traditional student has been the non-traditional student for us for quite some time. In my previous institution, and even moving forward now to where I am, we're working with adult students. Even our traditional students have children and families, they're caregivers. So the reduction of traditional students really means an opportunity for expanded demographics for us to attract. There are rising tuition costs. We know that's a concern for our students, regardless of if they're traditional or non-traditional. This is a concern for them. But we get to focus on quality and access to the services that we're currently providing. That's what's going on in higher education now. We're trying to figure out how do we make sure that we have quality, that what we're offering for the cost has quality to it, and also that it's accessible, again, to the expanded demographics that we know that we can now focus on attracting. We're also really, really concerned about student retention, keeping students persisting through their educational goals. That means we're concerned, on the other hand, on working to intervene early so that we understand what the barriers are to the access that we're trying to provide to the educational resources and programs that we're offering. We have more bridge and matriculation support events, programs, and services. Perhaps on your campus, you have TRIO, bridge programs. You're working with perhaps community groups, other colleges to create bridge pathways, high schools, things like that. So those are coming up. And we have more opportunities in our services across campus to offer academic success education and modeling rather than just offering the traditional tutoring services. We can start offering programs that model behaviors to help students prepare as they matriculate through their degrees and even before they come on campus through their bridge programs. So let's think about those things. Additionally, there's always going to be competition with community colleges and other universities. But that's an opportunity for us to expand our degree programs, to create opportunities to engage with more qualified faculty and staff from expanded areas of practice and discipline. You can offer now, we offer, local and global campus and student experiences at Winthrop. We have sister campuses in Asia. Perhaps you have those similar programs on your campus. And then we continue to offer that traditional area of network in terms of life, community, career, alumni resources, and networks. How does that look now? Where can we expand those opportunities for our current students and students that are about to matriculate and our recently graduated students? And then, of course, why I'm talking to you now at my home, I'm currently at home, the COVID-19 pandemic. That, of course, is still an opportunity. We're looking at new ways, expanded ways, revision ways to support current processes, programs, and services. This morning, I was talking to a colleague, and the question we discussed is, when we say campus experience, that may mean something to us that is different for a student. For us, campus experience often means in-person classes on campus. Perhaps now our students may be thinking that they come to campus only for certain events, and that is still a campus experience. I think I might break the next meeting I have with someone. We might break the internet on that one, but we might want to start considering, what does the campus experience mean after this pandemic, or during this pandemic that we're still in? What does that mean for the student coming into our campus community? Let's talk about how this plays out for excitement in libraries. Students are time agnostic. Even when they were on campus in the traditional sense, we know that our students who use the library or who use campus resources are time agnostic. They don't think rigidly about accessing services only for certain times. And in this way, I believe that the pandemic has actually shown the true value of how libraries have been preparing, not necessarily for a pandemic, but preparing just for this moment to show that we offer core and critical resources and supports, even if our doors are quote unquote locked, the library is open. So our students are time agnostic, and so are our faculty and other employees as well. So that means we've been already ready. We've already been doing these things, having our suite of ready services for research, instruction, and outreach. We've already been doing this, and now we're expanding those services. One thing that I'm considering doing that we're going to roll out soon is what I call a walk and talk book a librarian service, which comes out of the counseling research, where we meet outside and we walk and talk and do our reference interviews and our conversations and consultations that way. So we can expand those services to be even more available as we can with the people that we have in place to offer these things that offer people to access no matter what time of day or wherever they want to meet, however they like to meet. We're also concerned in our libraries about higher education preparation and career readiness concerns. And so getting ready, having our students get ready to come to campus, to be prepared to come to higher education and matriculate, but also what happens, having them get prepared for if they would like to start their careers or move forward in post-secondary education, get their graduate degrees. So that means student needs are academic needs, and libraries have been working to this end as well. Libraries offer several types of services that go beyond things that are traditional to higher, what we consider academic support. So we have this development of the third space now, where we recognize students see the library as a social area, not just a place where they come and do their core academic work. There's a focus on affinity groups now. If you have communities of practice, we have experiential learning through working with with your campuses, say your undergraduate research initiatives, and employment pathways, even through, they come and work for the library, or we assist them preparing for interviews. Perhaps if you have an information commons, perhaps one of your spaces in your commons is the Career Readiness Center. And some libraries are considering those things. So we're involved in not only seeing the student as the person in the classroom learning, but the student on the campus living and preparing for a larger life outside of academia. Libraries are doing this already, and that's exciting. Of course, that means there are rising resource costs. We know what that means. And when I heard that I was going to be, that this was the theme of the conference was open, ascending into an open future, I know that perhaps for many of you, we started thinking about open access and open educational resources, right? So that's a response to that. So we have our active consortia relationships. We have our persistent and expanding open access and open educational resources campaigns. Just for during this recording, later today, I'll be working with our team to have a training on how we can work with our faculty to make sure that they are incorporating open access and open educational resources into their syllabi and curricula. Perhaps those programs are happening on your campus, or you're making way even more impact or going in more deeply into those initiatives on your campus. And then we had the intra and inter-campus and community partnerships, which I find the most valuable as we move forward to sharing resource costs. Just like we do with our state consortia or your regional consortia, we can do these things and emulate some of these opportunities more locally and even on campus to share our resources so we can support students and also take care of the rising resource costs that we know are coming. Most important for me is library staffing and advocacy and empowerment. Those of you who follow my work understand that this is a core of my my mission. And so this is also, while I think why I think this is exciting for libraries, because traditionally, advocacy for libraries generally has not necessarily included library employees. So that means there's excitement for us as we work to get sufficient, fairly compensated, effective, and engaged and supported employees in the library from all backgrounds that we know are not necessarily represented in our libraries, and also continuing to support people who are currently working in libraries. We need to focus on well-being and have functional collegiality in our libraries. And during, of course, some of my research focuses on, I've been gathering research on how library workers, library employees are being, how feel about their jobs and how they feel they're being treated during the pandemic. And that means that we need to start, again, focusing on library worker status and safety in the libraries, and being sure that we're making sure that the library work that we're doing is visible. Much of library work is invisible, and even the things that are manifested visibly are done with a lot of invisible work, invisible labor. And we need to make sure that those pathways of communication showcase the labor that occurs before the end product in our libraries, which does a lot for morale in our library workplaces. So how are we going to do that? Well, for me, I do that through my concept of, or philosophy of, welcome. How am I going to do that? I'm going to share with you right now the why, the way, the waylay, and the wow. And when I say welcome, that means that when you come into a library space, a person, and by person, I mean a user and an employee. The user and an employee feel gladly received when they walk into the space. I do this through a multifaceted lens. Now you see these circles and you'll see their dots in the circles, right? That means this goes both ways, right? People coming in at the library, people coming out of the library, both ways. I do this through, first, a sense of purpose. A sense of purpose means they walk in and they know when they come in what they can do when they come into the space. This means we increase our campus and community collaborations, where people know what they can do with us when we work with them. We come to them with an idea, with a fairly good idea, formed idea, and we say, these are the things that you can do in the library, because people think they don't know all the things they can do in the library or the archive, but we have a sense of purpose. This is why this place exists, and we have our mission, and we go forth. And we come in and we go out and say, this is our mission. Did you know we did these things? Let us show you how you fit into that mission. So we increase our campus and community collaborations to provide a sense of purpose, along with our mission statements and our vision statements and all the other things that we know represent the work of the library conceptually. We also do this through a sense of belonging. A sense of belonging, this is going to highlight equity, diversity, inclusion, and accessibility, accountability, because we're focusing on people who have not felt welcome. In 2021, we know that there are people who still do not feel welcome in our libraries for various and sundry reasons. It might be something as conceptual as library anxiety, which we know through Mellon's work is a real thing. And it's also societal, where we know that people have not necessarily welcomed other people or had a sense of welcoming to other people in our libraries, particularly for Black, Indigenous, and people of color. So if we're working for a sense of belonging, then we know that our diversity work, our anti-racism work is part of our strategic plan. We have benchmarks for it. We know that we know what is working, we know why it's not working, and we go back and we work on it. These things increase morale. Cognitive dissonance, or diversity rhetoric, causes cognitive dissonance for library people, Black, Indigenous, and people of color working in libraries. And when I just need to make sure, for those of you who are not familiar with the low morale work, low morale experientially is an experience of repeated and protracted exposure to workplace abuse and neglect. And for BIPOC, diversity rhetoric is an enabling system of low morale. And this is why we want to talk about that sense of belonging, and the EDI work and the anti-racism work can help reduce feelings of low morale and or work on systems and actions that may perpetuate low morale. So a sense of belonging will be key into creating a sense of welcome in the library. The next thing, part of the welcome, is offering a sense of place when people come into a library and the archive. And this means we have to consider the impact of campus climate. So If we're working in the library or the archive and not perceiving that when people come into our spaces, they have walked through a campus climate to get here. And our research with my colleague, Brenton Stewart and Boryun Ju, shows that campus climate, whatever's going on the campus, people reflect that on the library. And we can counteract that when people come into the library. We can put out displays around the campus, not just in the library. You can put out information about something, say something negative happens on your campus. You can counteract that message or contextualize that event all across campus and not just in the library. So that's the way we can create a sense of place and help mitigate things that may occur. And so that's the sense of place when you think about how to create a sense of welcome in the library. Consider what's going on your campus and respond to those events, positive, neutral, or negative, whatever neutral means for you. Libraries aren't neutral. And finally, the welcome or a sense of welcome, also we want to invoke a sense of value in the library and the archive. And this means we want to have positive perceptions of service. Not necessarily that we say yes to everything, which goes back to low morale. However, we do want to have a positive nature and show that the true value of information gathering is that no library can provide everything. So we need to start focusing on creating those collaborative partnerships and letting people know that if we don't provide it, the opportunity is that someone else can. So we create these positive perceptions of these are the things we can provide and other people can provide other things. And so let me show you how to connect with those other entities. Libraries should be connectors, not necessarily always the ending place, and that is okay. So we want to offer those positive perceptions of service and information provision. And sometimes the information provision means a referral, and that is okay. But we want to make sure that people know that our value is that sometimes we offer the actual information, and even more importantly, we can also offer you the connection to the information within our larger community. We can be known as the connector for the larger community for services and information. So that's the general idea of the welcome: a sense of purpose, a sense of place, a sense of belonging, and a sense of value. These are the things that are the foundation. And again, these go in and we push them out. And it goes from all the way from your library through the nation. And if you're big and bad, I'm hoping that this goes all the way around the world. Wouldn't it be nice if everybody felt welcome in libraries internationally? So how do I think I'm going to do this? I just need to let you know I've started my new position as the Dean of at the Winthrop University Ida Jane Dacus Library and Pettis Archives just last July. And so I'm just now in my first year, and I started during a pandemic. And at this recording, my team just arrived back to campus just this past week, and it is mid-March. So how am I going to do this? This is how I hope to do this. So let's talk about the sense of purpose. Let's honor the mission, history, and creed of the institution, right? We're going to honor those things, those ideals as best we can. And we can also confirm our collective goals right now at the same time. Let's do that. It doesn't have to be an either or thing. It's a both and. We do that through traditional methodologies, right? Strategic planning, succession plans, assessments, visioning. But then also, I'm sure there are things that we might not be assessing that have been traditionally assessed that we need to determine how are we going to assess those things. What are those things? That's what I'm learning. I have a vision and visioning. What do you want your library and archives to be known for? Pick a couple of things and do those things very well. Because again, if we're talking about a sense of place, we know that we have the community to take on some of these things if we want to, if we do that work. So I'm looking at platforms and partnerships, and I'm thinking, just last year, I learned that I was a part of critical librarianship. So I just thought I was looking at things that I wanted to know. But in that sphere, we're looking at critical GLAM practice for galleries, libraries, archives, and museums. So we're working on pivoting to seeing our work through a critical lens, okay, which is still happening rapidly, particularly with the pandemic and all of the things that the pandemic has shown in terms of our systems and how they do or do not work. The next part is the sense of belonging. I'm evaluating organizational culture, but not just because I'm new to the team as a formal administrator and leader, but because if there are processes that I would like to see improved, I need to evaluate and see why we're where we are and what the parameters are for the improvement. So that's a creative process that will never end. Also, support development and empowerment. And my goal is to have organizational and resource representation, inclusion, and mobility for library workers. So hierarchically, while people may or may not be able to quote unquote move around, the idea here is to create spaces and give people opportunities for them to create an autonomous mobility for themselves within the parameter and give them as much support to do that as we can, so they can see themselves in the work that they're doing to the extent that they see themselves in the work, rather than having that come from a top-down perspective, but working together to create that vision for what they see in their daily work. In terms of a sense of place, I truly see that the library, for me, the library is a student life entity, just like a student group or anything like. I almost see the library as a space for student life, not just a space for academic life. So I leverage campus and student life and community service lenses when I do my work, because I see the library as the hub. Like, we have a student union on campus, but I perceive the library as the other student union, almost like if something happened there, they still have a student union. And my goal is to make it like almost equal to the student union, if not more than the student union. So the goal here is to advocate for capital project funding to improve our facilities. Right now, my building was built in the 1960s, and it looks and it feels every bit of that in terms of systems and how things work. So we know we're going to need a capital project at some point to improve facilities and to modernize some of our facilities and items. My goal is also, again, to neutralize silos, people working separately. This might happen in your library too, where people, as we continue working, our work gets more and more separate a little bit. And my goal is to bring people together to figure out how we're going to do things together, so we can maximize the human resources that we have and all the skill sets that are combined in those resources on our campus and in our library and archives. And of course, to purposefully and clearly purposefully, clearly invite and highlight purposefully and clearly marginalized voices and create more inclusive policies. So we're returning to a lot of our policies that I find may be exclusionary, to figure out a way to make sure that people know that they are literally welcome into the space, that we want to hear from them. And so right now we're doing several oral history projects that have not been done on our campus before. And then we'll be working on our collections and decolonizing our collections and expanding our collections, of course. And for a sense of value, budget oversight. Of course, we can't get away from the discussion of value without talking about fiduciary concerns. So of course I have budget oversight, and I'm looking very closely at resource evaluation, where those efficiencies and inefficiencies are. Yes, this is an opportunity for being creative. And so this is where my communities of practice come in, where, I talk with people who have similar values, similar concerns, and we figure out and create tools together that can mitigate concerns about fiduciary worries, and then create opportunities for communication that showcase what is that tell our story, really, that tell the story of the library and the archives, so people know what we do, how we do it, and how it impacts positively their lives, their goals, their communities, and dreams and hopes. And so that means that we're not only going to be doing that through programs, but engagement with our spaces, engagement with our resources, and most importantly, engagement with the people who help run the library and the archive. This is most important, because that's where the value is seen, through the skills, the knowledge, and the expertise of the people who make the libraries run. And that is the key here: connections with people. The other places are things and ideas. My goal is to also make people understand that the idea of welcome is most salient in how people interact with people. And library employees do a really great job. They can do a really great job of interacting with people when they are given the support that they need to do so. So there are some challenges here. So there's the waylay of the welcome. We often privilege innovation over creativity. And when in libraries and in other spheres, when I hear the word innovation, what I hear is we're doing this just because it looks sexy, it looks good, somebody else is doing it. We got to get on to that. We need to do what so-and-so is doing. And if it doesn't work this one time, we'll never do it again, which brings us to this idea of you come to a workplace and say, hey, why don't we blah? And someone says, we did it that one time, right? We have to keep trying. Creativity is iterative. I've done things many times. The first time it failed and I tweaked it. And then, how do they say, it blew up, right? So we have to privilege our opportunity to be creative, to know that we can improve, So if we're privileging innovation over creativity, we might not get to the welcome. We may not get to the welcome because our users will never trust us because we're just trying things out and seeing what sticks. And I think that to a certain degree, our users and we also deserve throwing things against walls randomly just to see what sticks. We can be creative and be strategic in our creativity. Make sure it really is going something that we can do with the resources that we have, whatever those resources are. So, if you're in a quick culture, if you want to get things out quickly, if you don't want to ever realize the potential of an idea, if you're doing something as a means to an end, if you want to create user mistrust, you might not get to the point of welcome because you're innovating rather than creating. Competition will waylay you to welcome because you'll be concerned about what other people are doing overly rather than how you can develop what you know to be good for your users, your employees, your campus, your culture. So you create false stories. Think about, the idea of competing. You don't know the whole story of what that person did or what that team did, but all you see is the end result. So you may create a false story of how they did that, what they did, spend a lot of energy wondering what they're doing. And you're decentering, there's a issue where you might be decentering the uniqueness and the aims and the ethics of the library information science profession. You might be thinking about, we need this person, so we got to get this person, even though they fit your culture, but they might not actually have the skill set. You might tell these stories that allow you to bring in people who may not have the skill set, but who you feel good about that. And that's a part of low morale where we tend to privilege who we like socially over what people can actually do for our organizations. And also, most importantly, if you're concerned about competition over developing and improving, you'll privilege perfection over excellence. And perfection and excellence are not the same thing. Excellence, you can continue to improve. We will never get to perfection, but if that is our goal, we will not get to welcome because we'll give it up. We might not even start. For some of us, we might not even start if we think we can't do it perfectly. And so we might not get to welcome. Resilience narratives. You will not get to welcome anyone if you are perpetuating resilience narratives, which privilege individuals over communities. So whenever there's a problem in the organization, we ask individuals to take care of it. We might not get to welcome if we do this. If we are discounting structural and organizational inequities, we will not get to welcome. If you are neglecting marginalized communities because you want them to take care of a system problem that already has marginalized them, you will not get to welcome. Shame and blame is a part of the resilience narrative. People do not do their best work when they have feelings of shame or feel blamed for things that are not in their control, or if they're made to feel like they have to respond the same way to varying levels of external stress due to systems that they are within. We cannot get to welcome if we have precarious work and more in the recent years, library employment has become more and more precarious. In fact, It's a whole emerging area. Go to look up job precarity, and you will see that there's a website where our colleagues are researching this area for the last few years. We cannot get to welcome if our people who make libraries run do not feel safe in their employment or feel unstable in their employment. This also means that we can't offer the services and do all the collaborations if we have decreased operations. We can't get the work done that we need to get done in the 21st century if we have competency gaps. We can't even connect with our users and other employees, for that matter, if we have poor service and we compromise our values in order to get to a certain quote unquote bottom line fiduciary wise. So we're not going to get to welcome through job precarity. We must figure out ways to advocate for library employees where they have stable employment with the benefits that are connected to that employment, that permanent long-term employment. Hello, Fabazi Attar. So you may have heard of this idea of vocational all. The short version of this definition is that library employees are often, the values of the library field are often maybe weaponized against library workers. That's the short version of vocational all. And when people in this field, when those values are weaponized against library workers, it is particularly damaging to our mental and physical health, because many library workers, their work is a central part of their identity. And so when that comes into play, there are damages to that. So we're not going to get to welcome if there's mission and job creep in our libraries. We're not going to get to welcome if we're misappropriating our LIS values to make people do more when there is less to do it with. We're not going to get to welcome if we are not able to critique our field and so that it improves. If we don't critique our field and show that its shortcomings, there's no way we will progress. And how can we get to welcome other people when we won't even reflect on ourselves and our own shortcomings in the field? We have to stop our over-functioning work identities and make sure that we understand that it's more than work-life balance. This is your job, and you are free to have a whole life outside of the library and information science profession. And you are a good person if you have a whole life. So we will not get to welcome if we are practicing the various aspects, both obvious and insidious, that promote vocational awe. We will not get to welcome if we have low morale in our workplaces. Remember, I said earlier, the experiential definition of low morale is repeated, protracted exposure to workplace abuse and neglect. We cannot get to welcome if people are fearful in their jobs when they come to work. We cannot engage with our colleagues if low morale causes chronic disengagement. When people are going through abuse and neglect, the first thing we do is isolate. We self-isolate, we withdraw from our colleagues, we withdraw from our work, we withdraw from our organizational missions, we withdraw literally from our organizational communities and professional communities. We are ill, both physically and mentally. Many people share that they have PTSD from being exposed to long-term abuse and neglect. Some people, at least once in every cohort, when I have these interviews, mention that they have considered suicide. So the abuse and neglect in the library workplace has exponential negative effects in the library. We can't get to welcome if our colleagues are ill. And of course, recruitment, retention, advancement, and EDI concerns. How do we bring in people ethically to a field if we know that they may be exposed to workplace abuse and neglect? Because see, now we know, right? The literature is telling us that it's happening. So how do we ethically bring in people to this field when we are not looking at how to eradicate abuse and neglect in our workplace? And how do they then welcome people into the library? What does that mean when someone is being abused and neglected and they're at a point of service? How likely is it, are they going to feel welcoming to people who come to the library or to the people working inside the library? Those things being said, there is a wow to a welcome. And this is a concept that I started at a previous institution that I am working and trying to figure out how we're going to do it at my current institution. So there's an impact to welcome. This is some of the things that you will see. that I know that I saw when I implemented this philosophy at a previous institution, and I think it will continue if we work on it at my current institution. We're working on it together. You will see impact. You may see upticks in collection usage, both physical and digital, and other collections that you have, archival collections, because you can create new services and collections, right? And then people start talking with you, and then you're like, oh, I can do this other thing. What else can we do? You'll see increases in program attendance and library space usage. Why? Because when you tell people what they can do in the library, they start using the space the way they want. You say, I perceive the library as a student space. So I say, people, this is the user policy. You can do whatever you like within this policy. It's your space. We're just here managing it, right? We're just here managing these items for you, making sure you know that you have access to them. You use the space. So people will start using the spaces that you offer to them if you let them know that they can use them. You'll see improvement. We were able to improve the library and building and technologies at my previous institution. We're in a pandemic right now, but as soon as we're open, whatever that means, I'll be working on, again, how can we improve our facilities so they are user-friendly in the way that the people coming into the library need them to be used, and also even for our own employees. They need these things so they can do their work more efficiently and effectively. How can we improve the library and make it safer and more effective and efficient in its spaces? Increase faculty development and research collaborations. Now we can start working. Did you know I did this? Did you know I did that? A lot of the things I did at my previous institution, I was able to even travel internationally because they realized I was a digital humanist. So we have increased faculty. Did you know you can do this for your class? This is your opportunity. Did you know about this tool that you want to do for A, B, and C? Yes, let's do that. Consistent library employee advocacy and continuing education support. This is going to be key. The more you go out and work with others, the more likely you're able to hear about other professional development opportunities that otherwise you would not have heard about. And or even better, like what's already happening on my campus is the library employees are leaders in other things. So people come to the library and say, I heard you did this. Would you come and speak about blah, blah, blah to the campus, to the community? And that's really amazing. So that's the wow, because again, that thing that I showed you, those little dots, it goes in and we go out. Ambassadors don't stay home. Ambassadors do not stay home. And you get more involvement in community and town and gown projects. This is particularly helpful if you're in a small and rural library. You'll want to be able to offer this sense of welcome so you can get more leverage through community involvement and specifically town and gown projects and initiatives. And that's really, really powerful, particularly in small and rural academic libraries. The goal is to create sustainably funded programs. I was able to do this at the institution, and this goes back to my idea of resource sharing, right? So now things are sustainable. Things can happen no matter who's running them. If somebody leaves, it's still sustainable. We want to do only the things that we're really, really good at, things that we know that we can grow with the people that we have and the resources that we have. And so that our users trust us, that they know this is something that they do. This is the hallmark of our place. But we do that so we offer a sense of trust to create sustainably funded programs and services. And in this way, the library value is solidified in all aspects of student recruitment, retention. You want it if you decide to do this, make sure you have an assessment created or some sort of tracking so you can show that the library, because we know that the library is this. We know that the library does have an impact on student recruitment and retention. And imagine what those numbers could look like when you invoke a sense of welcome in an intentional, open way. This can be recognized. It's a paradigm shift in library development, both in concept and role, because people generally forget about library employees, that they can create a sense of welcome for each other and within their interactions with users. So this is a sort of paradigm shift. I haven't heard anyone really kind of thinking about this idea of intentional welcome in a sort of a strategic way. Because I'm thinking about people inside the library, as well as people coming into the library. We need to make sure that we're thinking about library employees as holistic people working within the library workplace, and that is an experience that they are having. if we think about it from that aspect and not just from our library users, now we have a synergy going on where we can mitigate all these other waylaid issues. This is a unique trajectory. It does call for risk tolerance because it calls for creativity. It calls for empathy. Okay, you got to be thinking about how might people be feeling about it. Feelings cannot be divorced from the idea of welcome, because welcome is itself a feeling. And I mentioned about creativity and how that works. And again, trust. We have to build trust for this to work. And so that takes a little bit of time before we even get to other things. So start with the culture of your library and talking with people and moving forward from there. And there is going to be some risk there. This is a proven practice. As I mentioned, this is what happened for me at a previous institution that I am bringing with me. It's impactful. We have research. Again, I've shared with you how the idea of welcome comes through for particularly Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And also my work with Dr. Brenton Stewart talks about how this can work and be manifested for gender fluidity identities in libraries. There's some impact there as well. National and international perspectives on practice also inform my ideas about welcome. So I've done work with our colleagues in Korea and talking about how their research is and how they perceive their interaction with students. And that has somewhat informed how can I move that over into the Western world or United States and figure out what they're doing and try some of the things that they're doing. So that's, and also my feelings of being welcomed as I went to other libraries. So that my ideas of welcome are informed by that research, both nationally and internationally. This engaged career and research mentorship helps me inform my welcome, idea of welcome. My own research on how library employees are treated informs my philosophy of welcome. And it's been supported and respected by library leaders and practitioners. So people have contacted me and said, share with me more about it, and things like that. So, and it's been acknowledged by, I'm really appreciative of the work that I've been doing and that has been recognized on a national level by our professional associations as well. It's an idea of that's confirming for me rather than a culmination. The idea of welcome is something that I will continue. We never really stop. There's not an end point to refining an idea of welcome. And so the work that I've been doing on this has been confirming and recognizes that, there's a culmination and then we keep going. So if you have any questions, that's all I have for you today for the formal portion of our conversation. You can contact me through the different venues that you see at the bottom of the screen, and I look forward to your questions. Thanks for watching and for listening and for being engaged in our conversations through this conference. That you are most important. Take care of your health, take care of everyone, and take care of yourself. Thank you so much for watching.